never make it this far. They hate it, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic gotta say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up, I shoot my shot, wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this go up. You know it's all net when it go up. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play the same. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing, keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get dangerous, cause it can get dangerous, cause it can get dangerous. Ay, please don't play no games with me, I promise I'm too much. Ay, I can never let up even if you had enough. Ay, this ain't for the faint of heart, we always playing rough. I had enough, it ain't luck. I needed a vision, I needed ambition, I needed a mission to beat in submission with no intermission. I see the collision, the crash in the distance ain't coming off track, no. Now when they ask what's the motive, don't talk, I just show them. They all about to see what I mean in the moment. I gotta keep going, I'm shaking the dice and I'm keeping it rolling, they already know. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play the same. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing, keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get dangerous, cause it can get dangerous, cause it can get dangerous.
Ladies and gentlemen, salute, 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 salute. One more time for the gram. What's good? Couple people in the building. It's a pop-up live, of course. This is not the normal time, but had some time and I got some things to run and go and do a little bit later. But I thought I'd pop up and build with the community. Hope everybody's good. Everybody's in great spirits. Salute to everybody who is in the building. I see Kalia World, Flex flexing and stepping. I know there's other things going on in the space right now. I wanted to tap in, catch up with a little bit, just wanted to stay with the algorithm, man. So much going on, especially with the development of this Tank Davis, Jake Paul situation. Obviously, we're going into fight week. We are in the midst of fight week. Thursday, getting ready to be the weigh-ins tomorrow and the moment of truth with Vergil Ortiz Jr. and Erickson Lubin. So this fight right here, I don't feel like it's falling under the radar as much. I mean, it may be falling under the radar quite a bit, right? Just a little bit. I think real boxing fans are going to be dialed in for this one right here. This fight right here is a big litmus test fight for Vergil Ortiz Jr. and even Erickson Lubin, who's trying to make an argument as to why he should be in the biggest conversations in the 154-pound weight class division. And I think this fight right here is an opportunity for both these guys to kind of improve one way or the other. Vergil Ortiz, obviously his road to redemption and redemption, maybe that's not the word, right? Maybe it's not redemption, but if you take into consideration his 147-pound career and how that chapter of his life ended, where we really didn't know if we were going to see Vergil Ortiz Jr. back in the space, right? Dealing with his ailments, his physical his health issues, cutting that weight, failure, kidney, risking kidney failure and all types of other things that were going on. We didn't know if we were going to see him back. So when we saw him come back, if you've watched Vergil Ortiz Jr. speak on interviews about how he felt, he was in a state of depression, right? Because he was really entertaining the fact that his career might be over and him getting this second chance and opportunity, going up in weight to 154 pounds. And that's a story within itself, as far as a lot of these fighters are just destroying their physical selves to make these weight classes, right? Quote unquote weight bullies, whatever you want to call, but just depleted fighters, not fighting to not being able to really fight to their highest ability because of what they're putting their body through, right? There's an argument there to say that Devin Haney suffered from the same situation as far as who he's been up until this point, right? So that's another thing that makes that fight between him and Brian Norman Jr. even more intriguing. And you just want to see and get that, you want to get those questions answered. Like, who is this guy when he's completely, 100% himself? The guy, is he closer to the guy? Will he be closer to the guy that we keep hearing about him being during the training camp, right? I digress, and I come back to saying that this is a big deal for Vergil Ortiz Jr. Obviously, it's a big deal for Erickson Lubin, his journey at 154 pounds, a career 154-pound fighter, Erickson Lubin at this point. There's questions about whether or not he's been in the weight. Has he stayed in the weight class too long, right? Should he be going up to 160 soon, or is this just his weight class? Is this where he should be? We'll find out. Changes made in Erickson Lubin's camp, obviously, and Vergil Ortiz Jr. coming off of arguably for the past year probably had the most competitive schedule in the division, fighting Serhii Bohachuk and immediately returning to fight Israel Madrimov, two very, very high level Eastern Europeans. And he had his struggles, right? Did not get this decision, did not get the stops in his career that we're used to seeing him get when he fought those two guys. Those guys took him to the end, and he showed that he had the conditioning. He showed a little bit of ability to make some adjustments in the Madrimov fight, but then there's questions going into that as well, as far as where Madrimov was, as far as conditioning is concerned. Was he 100% himself? This fight right here will be, if Erickson Lubin comes in here the way we expect him to be, and it looks like he is coming in at 100%, very motivated, very prepared, really believes he is the veteran in this one, right? The experience he believes is going to make the difference. It's going to separate himself from anybody else Vergil Ortiz Jr. has fought in his past. So this is the big test for Vergil Ortiz Jr. This is the big test. And we've been talking about it, during the week. We talked about the intangibles. We talked about how is Erickson Lubin going to react with the new training with Coach K Karamo. And I had to dial back a little bit because I'm thinking that right now I'm in the dark a little bit about the relationship of Coach K Karamo and Erickson Lubin. As far as, did they have a history training with each other back in the day? I'm not too sure anymore, right? As I'm getting information that they definitely had a relationship, but was Coach K Karamo ever in the capacity of actually training Erickson Lubin? I really don't know. And that being said, it makes the biggest difference, because here I am believing that they may have a relationship, that they're just kind of like starting where they left off at. But in reality, if this is more so of a first time training with each other type of situation, then what is Erickson Lubin really going to gain at this? And will this bite him in the ass, right? Will Erickson Lubin not staying with Cunningham, with Coach Cunningham, going to hurt him? Not being somebody who's really, truly not only familiar with the way he fights, but was part of who he was as a fighter, helped create him as a fighter, right? So all these questions are going to be there floating around the room. And by the end of Saturday night, when it's all said and done, we'll have a lot of answers to the questions we have in our mind. There's rumors circulating, and at this point, I don't even want to say they're rumors, right? I think we are expecting Jaron Boots Ennis and Eddie Hearn to also be at the fight as well. So that's going to be great. We're looking for Jaron Boots Ennis to really show improve at this point at 30 plus fights into his career, right? Jaron Boots Ennis is definitely underneath the magnifying glass, right? It is what it is. Like, we really want to see who he is. A lot of us have been championing. Hold on a second, my phone is going off. Sorry. A lot of us have been championing and celebrating Jaron Boots Ennis off that eye test. We know who he is. We want to see him in the ring with these signature fights. It's about that time. We want to see him make it happen, right? And obviously, you don't want to put the blame on Jaron Boots Ennis completely, right? Because Jaron Boots Ennis, we know what he went through at 147, how difficult it was for him to put together those fights, to get any of the fights, right? As fighters have been arguably pricing themselves out of fights with him. But I think more importantly than pricing themselves out of fights with him, I think just him being a high risk they wanted a reward to match the risk that he's always presented. So we give him grace at 147. Um, as of late, there is an argument there to say that John Boots Ennis has had the opportunity to make the bigger fights, that he's been offered opportunities to make the bigger fights. And we watched him, arguably turn down and turn away and walk away from the biggest fights. Granted, there's a story there as far as the legacy is concerned, as far as the accolades, the opportunity that John Boots Ennis had to unify, to be a lineal champion. He had to kind of weigh it up, right? John Boots Ennis has had a lot of options in the past 2 years. Very sought after fighter in the American boxing space to be in certain fights, right? And at the same time, opportunities and doors opening up for him to kind of handle some childhood dreams, some boxer ambitious dreams that he has as a fighter, right? To be a champion, to unify, to be lineal, and him taking those opportunities and turning away from big paydays and big historical opportunities for the boxing space, as this space feels a little bit gypped, right? We feel got a little bit like, damn, we had an opportunity to finally see you in the big fights, and you didn't take those opportunities. Instead, you stayed down at 147 and you fought Karen Kukudajin again. And then you fought Stanionis, and that was cool. Then you had an opportunity to come up again and fight Vergil, and you fought Usama Lima. So the space has been critical of John Boots Ennis on the back end of performances as well that have been questionable, where people feel like, yeah, he's won these fights, but he's getting hit too much. So I think real pundits in the space are questioning, is John Boots Ennis's 147 version of him going to be successful? Is it going to translate well at 154 pounds against the bigger punchers, the fighters who are more dialed in and have a higher pedigree, more experience, fighters who are closer to his level and have that power as well? So the shots that he would take in at 147, is he going to be able to weather those storms? Is he going to change it up even and acknowledge all these different things as well, right? In the division. So this is a big moment for him, because at this point you can see the space is very much at the end of their, at wit's end with John Boots Ennis. They're really applying the pressure now. They want to see him make the big fights, and you got to bring it all full circle to really put some true perspective as to why the space feels that way. We're on the back end of watching Gervonta Tank Davis, somebody who we had, who's also championed by the boxing space in a large way. Watching him move the way he is, you can say that there's a little bit of PTSD in the boxing space right now, and the patience isn't there for John Boots Ennis, right? They don't want to see the idea of fighters not making the big fights, just coming in for the paydays, or moving in a way to where you could possibly even think of retiring or moving away from the sport without giving back to the sport, without giving back, right? Without giving back to the sport. So this is going to be a big event this weekend. It has a lot attached to it. Vergil Ortiz Jr. winning this fight is a big deal. It's going to be in his hometown, so you got to ask. I'm sure there are questions out there as far as how's the judging going to happen. If this is a close fight, can Erickson Lubin squeeze out a close fight in Texas? Right? Is that something he can do, or does he have to step it up even more and really make it clear that he's the winner of that fight? Dominate, even stop Vergil Ortiz Jr. if you can do it, right? Don't hold back, because you're on an uphill battle. You are the visitor. You are the B-side, right? You are not part of the plans. Vergil Ortiz Jr. and John Boots Ennis is a fight that everybody's expecting to see after this. And Erickson Lubin, on the other hand, is coming in and dialed into derailing and messing up everybody's plans. If you want to make God laugh, right? If you want to make God laugh, make some plans, right? And we saw this happen with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. We saw it happen with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. There's been fights out there, we watched a lot of fights that were planned on happening, and everybody knew it was written, and we saw a fighter come out of nowhere, like a Sebastian Fundora or like Erickson Lubin may be able to do it, or like Joseph Parker did it, Deontay Wilder, derail all plans. So a lot to to look forward to seeing, and a lot really pinned up on the outcome of this fight. Right. Also in the news, Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis, guys. We know this fight has been canceled officially at this point. We understand that Gervonta Tank Davis has some potential charges coming his way, but supposedly presently at a minimum a civil lawsuit being pushed back on Gervonta Tank Davis due to some domestic violence potential allegations. Gervonta Tank Davis being accused of pulling a young female that maybe was his girlfriend or somebody who he's intimate with outside of the club in front of people, and she is pressing charges, or at least civil suit, right? And that's another thing that's floating. We don't know what the civil charges are going to be. Maybe there may be some charges also that come up out of this, as there is an ongoing investigation about what happened that evening. But nonetheless, Jake Paul and Netflix have chosen to walk away from this fight, and that's one part of the reason as to why people would say the fight is being canceled. But there's also another little pink elephant in the room, which is, this fight was put together for a reason, right, ladies and gentlemen? The fight was put together because of money. It was a money grab. It was an opportunity to make a big spectacle, an exhibition behind somebody like Jake Paul, who's built himself a huge following on social media and in the boxing space. Coming off of a very successful event with Mike Tyson and other events that he's been a part of. This, keeping the fire going on a relationship that he's built up with Netflix, to showcase not only his spectacle or exhibition fights, but also to showcase women's boxing and other fighters that he may be representing. This was going to help that move forward, right? This was going to help to push that forward. And Gervonta Tank Davis, who's never made it a secret about how he's felt about boxing right now, hinting towards retirement and wanting to get his biggest paydays. This fight was supposed to represent that, right? And ultimately, what we've ended up seeing is that rumors are circulating right now that maybe the fight wasn't selling. Maybe the fight wasn't selling as much as people were hoping for it to sell. Ticket sales were low. Netflix was anticipating a way bigger reaction, a way bigger rollout. And Jake Paul communicated to the space, said Gervonta Tank Davis wasn't cooperating at all. He was not helping anything develop for the fight. He wasn't selling the fight, promoting the fight. He was showing up late to promos and to things that Jake Paul and his team were trying to put together to help make this fight as big as it could be. And Gervonta Tank Davis wasn't doing his part, if you ask the MVP team. And so a coincidence, or convenient for MVP to see Gervonta Tank Davis going through what he's going through right now, and maybe jumping on that opportunity to getting out of something that they may have decided a little while ago, or have been questioning a little while ago. How are we going to sell this with Gervonta Tank Davis moving this way? Yeah, right. Gervonta Tank Davis has always been known for a guy who sells. If you listen to a lot of Gervonta Tank Davis supporters, content creators in the space who champion him and stand behind him, they'll tell you that Gervonta Tank Davis can sell with anybody, that it doesn't matter. He doesn't need the right dance partner. He doesn't need to fight Shakur. He doesn't need to fight Devin. He doesn't need to fight T.O. It doesn't have to be the biggest fight in the world. Just off the strength of himself and what he brings to the space, Gervonta Tank Davis has historically, I guess, right, sold a lot of pay-per-views. Or has he, right? I mean, we know what he did with Ryan Garcia, and we know what Ryan Garcia brings to the table, but did he do that, with everybody else? What's a lot of pay-per-views? Is 250,000, 300,000, 500,000, a million? What makes you a pay-per-view star, right? We can argue and say that Canelo Alvarez, the actual face of boxing at one point in time, not now, right? Now that Terrence Bud Crawford is the relevant. No. Now, shout out to Canelo Alvarez. I'm sure in his own right, he's still a face of boxing at a minimum, right? But Canelo Alvarez is somebody who is considered to be the face of boxing based on his pay-per-view sales and the fact that he's going to pack out a stadium and do all of the above. So did Gervonta Tank Davis actually check all those boxes? I think he did at times, but I think he was on the road to doing that. And it kind of feels like right when Gervonta Tank Davis started to catch his momentum and finally had an opportunity to cash out on the momentum he built for himself, one might argue that that's when he kind of became a little bit I don't want to say bougie, right? I don't want to say bougie, but all of a sudden it became very difficult to talk to Tank, to get Tank to make those fights, and a lot of things that I think the space was expecting him to do when he moved away from Floyd Mayweather Promotions and kind of started to become more independent. And we were kind of thinking that what was holding Gervonta Tank Davis back from making all these big fights maybe was the relationship he had with Floyd Mayweather. But hindsight is 2020, right? Hindsight is definitely 2020. As we're watching things move in a way that maybe people are disappointed. And it's just difficult right now, right? To kind of make excuses for Gervonta Tank Davis, if that's your thing, right? If it's your thing to actually do that, you might, there's definitely an argument there to say that it's at a minimum more difficult now than it's been in the past years to continue to defend him or make excuses. And definitely with the domestic violence cloud that keeps hanging over him, seems to be a consistent thing with him, that if he's going to have problems with the law, it seems like it's always on the other side of some unfortunately, as some young lady, right, who's falling out on the bad side of whatever it is that's happening between Gervonta Tank Davis and these women, whether it's a car accident and a pregnant woman inside of a car, whether it's him putting dragging a girlfriend out of a basketball game, or whether it's accusations of him putting his hands on his girlfriend and her putting human waste on his toothbrush, or Father's Day situations, and now you have something inside of a strip club. I mean, it just seems to be kind of a common denominator there, and it's kind of hard to continue to be on the side of defending him once again, if that's your thing, right? So yeah, man, just watching that kind of develop and move around, it is kind of crazy. But nonetheless, if the event truly was not selling, I think that's a telling sign of what's happening in boxing as well, right? And maybe the boxing space has become a little bit tired of the Jake Paul crazy exhibition fights against people we don't care about, and always being some disadvantage there, but and Jake Paul always pushing to be respected in the boxing space, as wants us to take him seriously as a boxer. But he maybe is paying the cost right now, and maybe the boxing space is pushing back at Jake a little bit right now, right? And saying, listen, Jake, we don't want to see that anymore, right? Jake, we don't want to see that anymore. We want to actually see you in your weight class division fighting top 15 minimum cruiserweights at this point, maybe even top 10. I mean, at the end of Jake Paul's last fight that he had against who did he fight? Against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., people like, okay, this was a move in the right direction for the most part, even though Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. maybe a disappointment to the professional boxing space with his drug issues and his alcohol abuse and all these different things that came with him, right? His lack of commitment to the sport, that people wanted to see him continue to move with that legacy, being that he's a junior to a Mexican legend in the game, and Cesar Chavez Sr. Still, he did come from that background, right? He still was a fighter who was a champion at one point in a time, and he's fought Canelo Alvarez, right? Or an interim champion or champion, don't quote me, but regardless, he fought Canelo Alvarez. And I mean, this guy's a professional boxer. So it seemed to be a step up from everything else we saw Jake Paul doing. But after that, we thought that maybe this would be the rollout of Jake Paul fighting fighters that we can start respecting a little bit more, right? We saw him do a face-off with Zerto Ramirez, who was, I believe, on the undercard of that card, right? Who was like, maybe the co-main event or something on that card. But we saw him do a face-off with Zerto Ramirez. And I think, if you've supported Jake Paul up until this point and you've wanted to give him any kind of grace, which I think Jake Paul deserves grace right? When it comes to the expectations, being that he has no amateur career, that we know he started boxing very late in his career. How could we expect him to be in the ring, with the best of the best? Nobody's asking Jake Paul to do that. But as time goes by and you see him being in these fights and getting these knockouts, and you see him being such a promotional marketing machine, there has to be a part of you that if you were going to be convinced about Jake Paul, because I think we can also say that we've seen the improvements in Jake Paul as he's progressed through his career. You wanted to see the challenges go up, and I think him going at 135-pound, even though Gervonta Tank Davis is pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, regardless of that, at 135 pounds and you fighting your last fight at 200 pounds, it didn't make sense. And I think maybe this did break, that was the hair that broke the camel's back, right? Maybe this was the final, okay, boxing may have spoken, which as a avid boxing fan, I'm kind of proud of boxing for that, right? I'm kind of proud of that event not selling, tickets not selling. I'm proud that the boxing community, from what it looks like, may have put their foot down, right? May have put their foot down about boxing and how seriously we take it. And maybe this was the final straw for Jake Paul, and maybe this is a sign that Jake Paul needs to make the next one make sense, because there's pressure there for Jake Paul to show improve, not only from the boxing community but from Netflix, right? These people want to see Jake Paul deliver on his promises to be to be a face of boxing, the face of boxing, the draw, the big money. There's pressure there for Jake Paul to make the biggest fights now, or to at least deliver on the promise of Netflix, which if he's expecting the boxing space to back him on that promise that he's said he wants to deliver to Netflix, then he has to give the boxing space something to work with as well. Right, guys? Like that's what he has to consider doing. So let's see what Jake Paul does next. Let's see how he rolls out his next fight. Rumors are circulating that he's reached out to Anthony Joshua. He's reached out to Edgar Berlanga. He's reached out to Andre Ward, I think is the latest, which I think these fights, I think an Andre Ward fight would make sense. I think it would be not, I don't think Andre Ward's gonna, I don't know, we'll see, but would Andre Ward be willing to get ready to come out next month and fight Jake Paul? Andre Ward, somebody who takes his boxing legacy very seriously, right? This is somebody I'm sure who could have came back a long time ago if he was looking to make a fight. Andre Ward could have came back a long time ago and did something, but I think there's no question that if Andre Ward, if SOG comes back, it has to be something significant, something that he can look himself in the mirror and be happy he was a part of. So if the Andre Ward fight is a fight, and if Jake Paul is trying to make a fight with one of these guys, then more than likely this fight is probably not going to roll out until 2026 sometime, if that's even on the table, right? In the meantime, the undercard is kind of floating in limbo, right? Alicia Baumgartner, who was going to fight, do something historical for women, 3-minute rounds. I believe it was going to be a 10-round fight. She literally vacated one of her belts, the WBC belt, in order to facilitate this, as the WBC is not on board with the 3-minute rounds. Well, this event gets pushed to the side. How much sacrifice and of a loss is that to her as an up-and-coming fighter trying to make her move in the game? And we know Gary Antoine Russell was also going to make a title defense against Handy Hiroka, and that's not happening. And all of these things may be pending Jake Paul kind of figuring out who that dance partner is going to be, arguably, right? So there's a lot rolling out on the back end of that, man. But let me see here. Let me dial into who's in the building here. Shout out to Flexing and Steppin. What up, Clay? What up? Clear World was in the building at the 10-minute mark. Salute to Clear World. Birdman in the building, letting you guys know. Hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. Definitely. Eastside Easy, my guy in the building, man, says salute to the good guy Claymore. Finally able to catch a live from the start. No doubt, Eastside. Hey, man, we busy people, right? We moving around. I know me. I'm. There's a lot of things I'm weighing out right now, so I'm going to be a little bit busier, and I'm trying to make sure I allocate the time for the channel. Saturday is definitely a day that I'm trying to stay consistent with covering these fights, but it's hard. That's why we have these pop-up lives, right? We're trying to stay consistent with the space and keep you guys up on the biggest take in the game from your boy Claymore Rain, right? Shout out to Mr. Big Plate Bray in the building. Salute. Birdman says, have they announced a full card? You know what? I'm gonna check right now. I think they did. I know a couple of fights already on the card, but have they announced a full card? I'm not too sure yet. Mac Majestic in the building. Salute the Mac Majestic in the building. Hope everything is good with you, man. Let me see here. Mr. Big Play Bray says this is important fight because it's going to set the table for 154 next year. 100%, right? Salute to Jerome Bratton in the building. What's good with your family? Richard Sampson in the building. Peace and blessings to you, man. Shout out to my guy, Fight Sports Talk in the building from over there in New Zealand. Says as long as Ortiz gets through Lubin, he and Ennis have to be next. Yeah, it does seem like that, right? But does he have to be? And that's the thing about it, right? I mean, nothing has to be anything, right? Nothing is promised in this boxing game. And that's kind of part of the game, the politics, the Wild Wild West story of boxing, the prize fighting game and what it really comes down to. And yes, you would say that. And look, I'm excited to see if at least Eddie Hearn and Jerron Boots Ennis is willing to do the work. And what's the work? After the fight, if Vergil Ortiz wins this fight, are you guys going to walk into the ring? Can we have a face-off? Can we do something to solidify this to the fan base, right? Because it's time. We're ushering into a new era of boxing where boxing is finally getting that steam behind it. American boxing is getting a little bit of steam. This has been a very, very tumultuous 2 years going into this new year right here. It's been very crazy ever since PBC moved away from Showtime. Top Rank has moved away from ESPN. And the life is there for some great fights to be made, but we need the boxers to play their part and we need the fans to play their part, right? And right now, I think boxing is putting the pressure on Jerron Boots Ennis to show effort in making the biggest fights. We need to see him calling out fighters, showing up to their events like this. Let's make it happen. Let's put the pressure so we know where to apply pressure to where it needs to be applied to. If Vergil Ortiz is the one not taking the opportunity, we can put the pressure on him and vice versa. If it's Jerron Ennis, if it's the promoters, do we need Eddie Hearn to catch the fire under him? Do we need Oscar De La Hoya to catch the fire under him? Let's figure it out. Let's do the work. And as fans, let's support the biggest fights. Let's support the fights that make sense for boxing. Let's not just give away our vote for nothing, right? Let's not, let's stop it with the lopsided super A side versus the food, right? The mouse in the cage with the python, right? Like that's cool. It's right there inside of a glass case. I guess if you're into death like that, you find some entertainment in it. But I think if you're a real fan, you want to see the hunt. You want to see the fight. You want to see the fight be competitive. You want to see your fighter do things that he will never do unless he has that right dance partner in front of him that will put him in a position to where that's the only way he can win is by delivering that, right? So we all have to do our job, right? We all have to do our due. Shout out to James Dickinson once again. Regards from Scotland, my guy, 2 times in a row from Scotland, man. Salute to Scotland, man. You know what I mean? Salute to Scotland in the building, man. Southwest Dice, I believe, in the building right here says salute and support. Hit the like button, drop a donation. Yeah, man. Definitely feel free to drop some color in the chat, man. Let's help the channel get up there. I'll tell you what I would love to do. I'd love to do this full time, right? I'd love to do this every morning at a certain time. I'd love to put my job to the side and be here building on this boxing conversation. Those donations would really help, help the channel get to where it needs to be. But more importantly, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend so that people know that there's another channel out here talking about boxing, trying to give it an objective look at the boxing game, and let's help the channel grow. That's the most important thing at this point, right? Who's this here? Trey War HTX says him selling with anyone isn't true. Go back and look at his numbers outside of his fight with Ron. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Trey, earlier, right? There's a narrative out there that he'll sell against anybody and that he's the biggest thing since sliced bread. And, shout out to Tank Davis, but is that necessarily what we're looking at? Are we being honest about that? Is that successful? And does the outcome of this event not selling speak directly to that? Or is it just the circus activity that the boxing space is putting their foot down about saying we're done with the circus. Is boxing just done with the circus of putting together these fights? Jake Paul, how long did you plan on this going? Was this the big picture? Was this what you were going to do until the wheels rolled off or falls off? Or did you actually plan on stepping it up? Because if you did, then right now, legitimately maybe the time to do it, as boxing doesn't seem to be going for just anything and everything now, right? Boxing wants high quality fights right now, right? We want something. We're getting it, I think, and that's the thing that happened with Turkey Al-Sheikh, right? He delivered these fights. He delivered competitive fights. Turkey delivered fights that you didn't even know you wanted, but what you saw, you wanted more. When you saw Lester Martinez and Christian and Billy fight, that had to do something to you. You had to want more of that. And if you ask yourself, how do you get more of that? You start to get into the matchmaking game, right? And interestingly enough, boxing fans today have made the biggest deal over the money part, right? This guy is the biggest star because he makes the most money, right? He sells the most tickets. Well, okay, fine. But now let's talk about the matchmaking and the quality product, the delivery of the product that you're getting as a fan. Now that you've been exposed to great fights, legendary fights, legacy being made between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford. Now that you've seen a Christian and Billy and Nestor Martinez, you saw the first Conor Benn and Chris Eubank too. You saw Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. You saw Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. You saw undisputed championships between Better Beeve and Bivol. You saw these fights. And is there a difference between the feeling you had from those fights in comparison to just watching somebody that you already knew was going to get knocked out before you even, paid for your pay-per-view? Is there a difference? I'm hoping that this Gervonta Tank Davis, Jake Paul result, which was promoted as going to be bigger than a Terrence Crawford Canelo Alvarez fight, right? It was promoted to be an event. You listen to the Gervonta Tank Davis supporters, they would have told you, like, no matter what, whether we agree or disagree with this event, we know one thing's for sure, two things for certain: it's going to sell more than Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. Was that necessarily what happened here? Is that what necessarily happened here, right? And no, I think it's an argument to say that no, it wasn't going to sell. It doesn't look like it was on the road to sell out more than Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, right? Which means that boxing still gets respect. Good boxing still gets respect. Does it get the respect that it deserves? Historically, not always, right? In this current space, right? Not always necessarily, I guess, right? Did Better Beeve and Bivol get the respect that it deserved? Probably not, right? It didn't sell a lot. I mean, right? The pay-per-view sales there said that a lot of people just weren't interested in that fight. This is the real hardcore fans who understood the magnitude and the talent that was inside of that ring, knowing that we truly had the best versus the best and we had undisputed on the line, knew the value of that fight. But a lot of people just didn't care about it, right? But I think things are changing, man. I think we're just ushering ourselves into a new era. We are in a transition mode where the new era of boxing is demanding the best fights, right? It is demanding the best fights. It is what it is, Let's see here. Just going down the list, see thing by a miss. Shout out to Denzel Horton here. Said Jake should fight Badu Jack. Hey, Jake, there's a lot of fighters that Jake Paul could fight. Denzel Horton, that would make sense. You know what I mean? I saw, shout out to Pat Brown this weekend, right? Pat Brown, up and coming fighter, 5-0. Right, 5 knockouts, 5, but he's not top 10, right? He's a prospect level fighter. Jake could fight him, and Jake could definitely fight a Badu Jack. There's a title on the line. I don't think he deserves that. I think there'd be an argument. That's another argument in boxing. That people are talking about. These fighters who are coming off losses or who are just making their first time into a division and never had a belt before, walking right into championship fights, losing that championship fight and then going directly into another championship fight. Right? There's a conversation there about that as well. So I don't know if he should be fighting Badu Jack, but if it gets announced at this point, you'd have to feel like you'd have to want to give Jake his flowers and take him seriously. You're not favoring him going into that fight, probably, but you would have to put some respect on his name when he talks about what he thinks about boxing, right? It is what it is. Shout out to Mr. Ishmael in the building. Salute, Mr. Ishmael. What's good with you, family? My brother Ray Davis in the building, man. Shout out to my guy, Round One. It's Clay, my dude. Salute to you, family. Teach. Salute, Teach. What's good with you, family? What's good with you, King? Let's see here. Is there anybody who I'm missing? Flyer Frequency, man. Salute to my brother, Flyer Frequency in the building. Hit me with the salams, man. Walaikum salam, Flyer. Good to see you in the building, man. Hope you're in good spirits, good health, man. More importantly, right? Mr. Big Play Bray showing support to the channel, man. Thank you, Mr. Big Play Bray, with the $2. Says, put some color in the chat, man. For sure, man. Join them. Feel free to join my brother, Mr. Big Play Bray, and support the channel, man. We appreciate anything and everything. Z Pacino in the building. Salute to you, Z Pacino. What's good with you? Shout out to AK Crowder with the spiritual super chat. Sends it every time. We love it. We love the love, man. Blessings, brother Claymore. Salute to you. The Butcher in the building says, so can we agree we condemned Tank before finding out the truth about Jake Paul dropping out? The Butcher, yeah, man, just another one of those fans, right, who can't get over the reality of everything being able to coexist in the same space, right? So things are coming out and rolling out, but the Butcher, as a Tank fan, what do you need to see at what point to hold Tank Davis to make it to where you're not bothered when Tank Davis is being held accountable for what he's putting himself in the middle of? At what point? What bit of information, the Butcher? I mean, listen, there's a rumor circulating that there is a video that may be coming out within the coming weeks, right? That does exist, at least. Whether it comes out or not, I don't know. But you know how those things go. Police departments and lawyers and courts, they seem to do a poor job at containing these videos. But there's an argument that one exists of that exposes Tank in a not so good way, right? I'm also hearing that we're talking about potential alcohol that was involved in this, that he may be even inebriated throughout this whole entire situation. That being said, 2 weeks out from this fight, what was Tank Davis doing? How prepared was he getting himself for this fight? You know what I mean? Tank is moving in a way right now, and shout out to my brother Angelo Reyes Boxing, who spoke about this about a month and a half ago, and I laughed at him. I thought it was ridiculous, right? More than that, maybe a little over 2 months ago, when he said that Gervonta Tank Davis was beginning to remind him of Adrian Broner. And I was like, you're bugging, bro. Come on, man. Adrian Broner fell completely off, bro. This dude be drunk on camera, always getting in this stuff. That ain't Tank, man. Tank is just not motivated. He just doesn't want to box anymore. That's it, man. He's just looking for his way out. He wants to make his biggest payday, but he's pushing towards retirement. And his fans are, in my opinion, misreading the room. They're not reading the room properly. But at the same time, Tank ain't Adrian. I mean, I think there's an argument there to say that there's some Adrian Brown-ish energy, you know what I'm saying, floating around this. And for guys like the Butcher, you know what I mean? And I know, shout out to the Butcher, man, respectfully, too much love for the Butcher, man. These fans who are on this side of defending Tank Davis no matter what, like a family member, right? And I don't know if some family members would get this type of defense if they were just constantly being accused of putting their hands on women. But at what point does it not become Hunt Tank Davis narrative? Because that's what the narrative is. The narrative is that we are unfairly attacking Tank, right? We're just looking to tear him down because we hate him, because he's a black man who came from the hood, who came from nothing, and he's making something happen, and we just don't want him to make it out, and we just make other people do the same thing, and we don't talk about him that way. We just got this thing for Tank. At what point does it go from that to, come on, Tank, bro, you're not making it easy for any of us, bro? At what point are we holding Tank up like, come on, bro, this can't keep happening with you, bro? At what point does it become that kind of conversation? If you are really a fan of his and you really care about him, as you guys would have us believing over the years, that we're being unfair to him, at what point do you put some accountability on your fighter, right? Can two things coexist? Can Tank Davis, can the event not selling be the reason why they canceled it? But at the same time, can Tank getting a domestic violence abuse incident have given them the opportunity to get out of something they wanted to get out of? Does that connect? Does one exist with the other? Does one exist without the other? Because if they wanted to just cancel the event, they would have just done it, right? But is there an argument there to say that they wouldn't have had anything to use as leverage to cancel the event if Tank Davis didn't get into the situation that he was in, right? So we don't need to make those statements, right? So can we agree we condemn Tank before finding out the truth? What do you mean we condemn Tank? Tank condemned himself, right? Because he's constantly involved in these situations. And even if it was a conspiracy, even if Tank hasn't been doing anything wrong, intelligence will get you, you know what I mean? Just this reality of why are you in Tootsie's getting drunk, getting into it with a female to where she even has a case. She has a case, right? Which leads down the road of there's an argument to say that at a minimum, him and the lady had a confrontation, right? Maybe an argument, maybe a heated, whatever it was. The lawyer clearly has enough evidence to put them around each other enough to where he can build a case up to sell to the world that there was a physical confrontation that happened, right? We haven't seen the video footage or anything like that, but once again, like I said to you earlier, if that rolls out, then what do we say? And how do you feel about it? I think our community has become desensitized to these things. You know, we're just too used to it, right? We're used to seeing this kind of stuff happening in our community. And a lot of us are walking around here saying, what's the big deal? I know it. A lot of us are going, so what, man? People get in all the time, know what I mean? Yo, man, you know me, my dad used to hit my mom, or yo, bro, every now and then I slapped my girl before she was getting out of line, or yo, my brother got it. We've seen these things so much that we just don't want this to get, we feel like we're giving this way too much attention. And I don't know. I think it's kind of weird. I've been in this boxing community building content in this space for going on 2 years now. And man, bro, our community, bro. It's kind of embarrassing. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I'm just being real with you, right? Salute to my guy, Just Do Boxing in the building. Salute, Just Do. What's good, family? Let's see here. Let's continue moving the needle here. And anybody who I missed, anybody, CJ Rich in the building. Salute. Says Paul versus Perlanga is perfect. Clown versus Payaso. Yeah, man. That would be a great fight, actually. You know what I mean? But I think Berlanga would be smarter. Not smarter. I would rather see, I don't know. Because I'm talking about the Armando Resendez fight that's supposedly in negotiations for 2026. That's a fight that can give Edgar Berlanga a title of some sort, right? Or at least put him in position to be elevated to be a full champion on the back end of Terrence Crawford potentially vacating, or if he moves to 160 and he competes against Janibek, for that's another thing that's being rumored to be on the line between Janibek and Lara winning that fight. That fight may be on the line there. The next thing for Terrence Crawford. But that being said, if he does vacate titles, the title that Armando Resendez holds, I believe, would be elevated to a full champion. So that'd be an opportunity for Edgar Berlanga to do that. But I think the boxing space would love to see Jake Paul in the ring with somebody who you really believe not only can knock him out, but has a high probable chance of knocking him out, right? I think we'd all appreciate that. So it's up in the air, right? Edgar Berlanga versus Jake Paul, definitely a fight I could definitely watch. So I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a fight I could definitely watch. I think that would sell for whatever it's worth, and I think there's a high probable chance that is the next fight. People are talking about this Andre Ward being next fight. I don't think so. I just don't think so, but it could happen. But I just don't believe it. I don't think that's necessarily what Andre Ward wants to be involved in. And if it did happen, it would have to be rolled out the right way. Definitely not with no month notice, something like that. It would be something, if Andre Ward were to get involved with it, I would think it would be something that he'd want the whole 3 month, 4 month, 3+ month, 4+ month marketing campaign. He'd want to push to make this fight as big as it could be so he can get a payday that makes sense out of it all for Andre Ward. If you to return to the space to fight in Jake Paul, you would think the money would be the big thing, right? So it is what it is, man. Shout out. We got 56 people or 50 something odd people inside the building. Let's make sure we're hitting that like button. Help support the channel. Help support the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. Hit your bell notification so you're getting a notification when we're doing content like this. Salute to everybody who is in the building, man. Thank you in advance again. Jason Evans in the building. Salute, says Vergil ducked Bakram. Did Vergil duck Bakram? I don't know. I kind of get what you're saying, that they didn't want to make that fight happen because of the rehydration clause. And we are so heartless. We're so heartless as a community. But I ain't even mad at you, bro, because it's not our job to really care that like that. But come on, we know Vergil has issues. His father, at least his father kept it 100, man. And I'm going to respect that. The father said, listen, man, my son has health issues, bro. And we're not trying to get under a rehydration clause unnecessarily, right? Why fight a big puncher like Bakram, be held to a rehydration clause? We know my son has had issues cutting the weight and doing it in a healthy way. His career almost ended. His health almost went left. He could have died. So, we're going to hold down the family, and he's going to protect his son by any means. And I'm okay, man. I'm okay. He has a WBC interim title, right? He has an opportunity to become a champion in the WBC. So why should he, go fight the IBF and put himself in that kind of danger, right? It's already dangerous enough as the sport is dangerous, right? Boxing is a game you don't play. People die in the ring, die because of what happens in the ring. So yeah, bro, why make that fight happen? If anybody may have ducked Bakram, if there's an argument there to be made, you probably put more of the onus on Erickson Lubin, right? Who actually fought an eliminator and was supposed to be next up to fight Bakram, right? But interestingly enough, we'll talk about that too as well, because I want to get into that. But I think Erickson Lubin made a good argument as to why the Bakram fight didn't happen. And it's what I've been telling people, right? Shout out to my brother Fight Sports Talk in here. We had a friendly, respectable debate between brothers, because I got so much love for my guy Fight Sports Talk. But we spoke about Bakram being potentially ducked and fighters not wanting to fight him because how dangerous he was. And I said, Bakram is a dangerous fighter, 100%. But I think also this is prize fighting, and the business of boxing may not be favorable to making a fight with Bakram Murtazaliev, right? The money may not be there. Now, I know people talked about Turki Al-Sheikh being involved with Bakram, but in what capacity? Because I think there's an argument to say that Turki's been involved with the fighters that he's been trying to get to fight Bakram, right? But not with Bakram Murtazaliev, if that makes any sense. In other words, was Turki trying to get Jaron Boots Ennis a fight with Bakram? Maybe, right? Was he trying to get a fight like Josh Kelly, somebody who he's worked with, a fight with Bakram? Maybe, but is he there trying to find a fight for Bakram? I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know necessarily that's it. And that being said, if we hear Erickson Lubin's understanding of why the fight wasn't made, it was because they were having a hard time getting a date, getting a venue, and coming to an agreement as to who was going to pay for the fight, right? So there's an argument there to say that, well, if Turki was involved with Bakram Murtazaliev and helping to coordinate his fights, and that shouldn't have been a question, right? The money should have been there and it should have made sense. But it seems like the issue is it's not as profitable as people may think it is to get inside the ring of Murtazaliev, especially with the elephant in the room, which is the fact that he can beat you, right? And that he's a hard puncher and he's a very difficult fighter. This man's taking a lot of step aside money at 154 to not fight people. So there's all those factors involved into why we may or may not be seeing a fight happen with Bakram Murtazaliev, right? It is what it is. So I don't know. I would say Vergil duck Bakram. I think that might be unfair, man, especially considering that if anything, we know that it doesn't look like Vergil's ducking too much smoke. He's fighting another fighter here. You know what I mean? This is back to back. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for his hand surgery, he'd probably been in the ring with another. He probably been fighting for a title right now. It probably would have been him and Sebastian Fundora fighting for that WBC title, right? So we got to give Vergil Ortiz his respect, man. Salute, salute, salute. Let me see here. The Butcher says Jake Paul new Tank background. Yeah, right. But it gets to a point to where, well, first of all, I don't think you'll get any argument from me that Jake Paul, Netflix MVP, took the opportunity to walk away from a fight they felt like wasn't being promoted properly by Tank Davis and obviously wasn't showing signs of being something successful as far as the ticket sales and things of that nature. But at the same exact time, nothing you're going to say, in my opinion, can or should absolve Tank Davis for his part that he's played in this event being canceled, right? There's just nothing. Jake Paul has his part, and we should hold him accountable accordingly for what he's doing. But there's nothing that I can see that I can use, me personally, that I will absolve or take away from Tank Davis's role he played in this event not happening. I think if you're a fan of him and if you support him and that's the kind of love you have for him, to where that's what your thing is to defend somebody no matter what, then you can find some grace and you can find some satisfaction and some relief in the fact that the rumor is Jake Paul and the team were looking at losing money and canceled the event and took the opportunity, were a bit opportunistic in canceling the event. You can find relief in that for you as somebody who wants to stand by your man, right? But for me personally, yes, and yes to the other thing, right? Yes, Jake Paul got out of an event that was going to cost him money and potentially hurt or put pressure on a relationship he's trying to build with Netflix to make millions and millions of dollars as a promoter and a fighter. So he may have taken that opportunity, him and the promotion staff or the people who are vested as owners in the company or whatever have you, the investors that are involved with the company, maybe they took that opportunity. But yes, also to the fact that Tank Davis he needs to do something about that. He should do something about that. He should address that because it can get bad. It can get bad, especially when alcohol is involved. If you're comfortable with putting your hands on women, if that's what it actually is, that's the bigger story to me. That's the bigger thing to me. Business not working out and people moving how they're moving because of business is cool. But yeah, Tank putting his hands on women is a big deal, bro. He should not do that. And he should be careful about that. And if it's getting to a point to where it's happening consistently, well, we're just seeing him coming off of getting a case dismissed, which people are going to take that as a sign of his innocence and not take it as a sign of resolution. Resolution doesn't mean innocence. Plea bargains don't mean you're innocent. Because you took a plea bargain that didn't convict you of murder doesn't mean you didn't commit murder. It means you took a deal that got you out of being tried for murder. But if you did murder somebody, that's what you did, right? That's still the thing. That's the elephant in the room, right? Is that you killed somebody, right? Even though on the paper it says you pled out to a lesser charge that doesn't make it look like you murdered somebody. We can also speak honestly to the elephant in the room, to what it actually is that's happened. And this is getting very consistent with Gervonta Tank Davis. It's becoming his thing, right? He is the common denominator in these conversations, right, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not making that up. I'm not trying to put a jacket on him. I'm just being honest. Shout out to my brother Ryan Frazier in the building. Boxing Talk up north. Salute, salute, salute. So here he goes. I gotta do it because I'll be honest with you, the butcher, man. These I appreciate the interaction and the contribution to the conversation, right? But once again, horrible narrative that you're pushing here. This is a horrible narrative. You are tearing him down. He haven't been found guilty of no woman being charges, brother. That is that is legitimately the definition of semantics, right? That's what you're doing, right? What I'm saying is, I'm prefacing everything I'm saying with if, right? But I'm also saying that there's still an eyebrow that I'm raising towards the situation because it's constantly happening with him. And I think if it wasn't so much that you were such a fan of Tank, that anybody else who was constantly involved in these conversations, defending himself in the law, having cases dismissed, and with different women, I think it would raise an eyebrow with you too, right? But I think if you're being honest with yourself and you try to sit back and look at the landscape of things, you should, at a minimum, you should be like, you know what? I'm going to reserve my judgment of my brother who I got love for and make sure I just want to make sure he's guilty. But you should also be able to be like, but damn, bro, I can't even knock anybody who's looking at this weird, right? You should be able to say, I can't even knock anybody who's choosing to look at this weird, bro. Because at some point, buddy gotta not be involved in these conversations. Why are you getting into it with women in bars? What did you do to make it even look like this is a problem? It's problematic right now off the strength of your freedom is on the line, your money's on the line, but also the effect that it's had on the card for Lamont Roach, that when he was going to fight Lamont Roach, for those fighters who had to be moved around and had training camps getting ready for fights and aren't going to have whole entire events are canceling off the back end of these misunderstandings, right? There should be some accountability there, but you guys can't do it. And am I saying he's a horrible person, the worst person in the world? No, what I'm saying is, how long are you guys going to just sit here and make excuses for this? Right? I'm sorry. How long are you going to do it? And you should be uncomfortable being on this screen right here, speaking on this here. You're accusing me of tearing him down. What in the world are you talking about? Yeah, man, it is what it is, man. Salute to Devontae Richardson in the building. Says salute to ATP family, man. Mr. Big Playberry says, K, please give Tank fans their wish and stop talking about a man that obviously doesn't want to fight real competition. Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about him as much as it is, but I'm not scared to talk about him, right? I think that's another thing that we need to kind of face. I'm not going to be made to feel any kind of way of speaking about something that's all over the news. You know what I mean? This idea that there's a policing happening in the boxing space to where people aren't allowed to cover what's going on in boxing, that we have some obligation to not cover stuff that everybody else is covering, that is there on the news. This is heavy is the head. This is what comes with the game. And I'm not going to be made the bad guy because I'm speaking on something over the guy who may be doing something who may truly be the bad guy, right? And I'm not going to be in a position where I'm not going to speak on an event that was supposed to be as big as it was going to be with Jake Paul not happening. I'm not going to not speak on how Gary Antoine Russell put in a camp for his fight and he's not getting an opportunity to fight. Who's going to interview Gary Antoine Russell and ask him how he's feeling right now? He had to stay on weight. He had to stay on point. He had to not hang out with his family, not take out that vacation, not eat that meal. He had to go through the sparring sessions, right? And get punched on and punch on people and get ready and get his mind right and get focused. Just for 2 weeks before the event, it gets canceled because somebody, right? Alicia Baumgartner, who knows, she vacated a WBC title. She left an undisputed status to make history with 3-minute rounds, and she can't do that off the back end of, right? So, yeah, man, the hell with all that bullshit, man. The hell with all that policing, and I can't speak on him, and fuck that, right? Sorry for you. Fuck all that. I'm going to talk about it because that's what's in the news. And that's what's happening. And I'm not going to feel bad, and I'm not tearing him down, and you're not going to convince me to feel guilty. No. Fuck all that. Next. Right? I'm going to talk about it as long as I feel like talking about it. That's how that's going to work, man. That's welcome to the world we live in, right? Shout out to my brother. Teet says, remind me to hit Tootsie's up. I got to see what's up. No doubt. And there's a narrative out there that this happened in a huge, populated, busy area. No, brother, Tootsie's is in the warehouse neighborhood over there in Miami Gardens, bro. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? You're searching and going too hard to look for an excuse as to why you can defend your guy. You're a fucking weirdo. Yeah, bro, because over a man, you're doing a lot over another man from the outside looking in, at least. Seems like you're doing a whole lot. Now you've delved into an area of talking about shit you don't know nothing about, speculating and being wrong on a lot of shit that you guys have been saying. I'm cussing a lot. I'm messing up my shit, right? Making up a lot of shit that has historically been wrong. You know? Credibility, not necessarily there. Not that it's necessarily needed, because you guys will pack out these chat rooms and pack them out and be right there with them. But yeah, I know where not to look if I want to know what's going on in boxing. It is what it is, right? Maybe that's why you guys are that's why you guys are hating on me so much. I don't know, bro, right? It is what it is. Ryan Fraser, salute to you. King says, yeah, it's crazy, Clay. God don't like ugly. 100%, man. Shout out to my brother Blaze, Pound for Pound TV in the building. Salute, man. Let's continue to move on here down the list. As I say, salute to everybody. I see Amani Fitness in the building. Salute, man. Salute, Claymore. Love from TBV. No doubt, man. I'm supposed to go on TBV. I might go on today if he's up, man. I haven't been able to go up. I've been so busy, bro. Oh, man. I haven't even been waking up I work the third shift, guys, right? I work at night. So I'm so tired, man. I haven't been able to go up there, man. But definitely salute to TBV. Salute to my brother Ness, Two-Tone over there. I like it over there, man. I gotta make my way up there. I don't want Ness to think, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, where this dude at? You know, nah, he's probably not worried about what the hell I'm doing. But no doubt, man. Salute from Armani Fitness, man. I appreciate you being in the building, man. Vaughn Greenhill says rumor has it might be Nate Diaz again for the Jake Paul. I don't think it's gonna happen. I know that was a rumor, but once again, Jake Paul has the pressure of his deal with Netflix to put on. It's on the line right now. It's so funny because where Jake Paul, you know, more money, more problems. Jake Paul has problems right now because he can't just give Netflix any old fight. Does that make sense, guys? Like, there's pressure on Jake Paul. That's why he's screaming. Jake Paul has a whole card that has fallen apart off of a bad decision he made to make a fight nobody asked to see. And he tried to sell to us and convince us that this was going to be a big fight. He sold that to Netflix. And Netflix is seeing this in real time and going, Ayo, Jake, not for nothing, bro. Nobody wants to see this fight. The tickets aren't selling. What happened? Nobody cares about the fight. Nobody's talking about it. People don't. And where's your guy at? You made us put a bag behind this. Your guy won't make promo videos. He's not showing up. The press conference was horrible. What is this guy talking about? Jake. And Jake has a pressure on him right now to make something happen. So no, Jake, Nate Diaz isn't going to do it for you. This is Netflix. You are competing with the last event that Netflix put together, which was Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. 41 million views, right? That's what you're competing with. Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul will not deliver on that. Yeah, bro, you're going to have to fight somebody. You're going to have to convince the boxing space that you're going to deliver must-see boxing. And I want this to also be understood and taken into consideration. Although Mike Tyson and Jake Paul delivered on the viewership, because a lot of people came in and tuned in to see it, newsflash, most people were not happy with the way that fight looked. Take that into consideration, Jake. The results were what they were because people tuned in, because you convinced people, and Mike convinced people with videos of him doing mitt work and hitting bags and being all hungry. People thought, really was like, yo, Mike might be back. But when the fight came out, we realized you was beating on an old man. I got in my feelings. I thought Mike was back. You sold me, Jake. I was like, yo, Mike might knock this dude out. But by the third round of that fight, fourth round, third, fourth round, somewhere in there, I got uncomfortable. I started to realize what it was, and I got past the silliness of it all. And I think a lot of boxing fans got past the silliness of it all. And we realized, and we got scared for Mike. And we all understood that we'd rather had not seen that was a horrible situation. So on the back of numbers you used with Netflix to convince them that you are that guy, you weren't honest with yourself to say that in reality, that fight hurt you more than it helped you. And right now, with Gervonta Tank Davis and Jake Paul being a fight that you guys were trying to sell to us, the reaction of the boxing space speaks to it. It speaks to the fact that that event wasn't as successful as you think it was. It was more shock value than anything. But most people walked away from that event saying, we don't want no more of those events. Most people walked away feeling that way. Like, y'all, we don't want to see no shit like that again. Right? So then you did the Julio Cesar Chavez fight, which I don't know how that ended up turning out as far as, viewership and everything like that. But that fight was actually a good fight as far as, okay, Julio Cesar Chavez, right? So we're thinking you're on the right road. And then what did you do? Boom. Let me fight a small 135-pounder, Gervonta Tank Davis. Back to the shenanigans. People caught a PTSD flashback of what happened with Mike Tyson and said, this is going to be a fight that's not entertaining because one or two things are going to happen. Tank Davis is going to sit there and fight the shit out of you and potentially get knocked out, or Tank Davis is going to do what Jermell Charlo did against Canelo Alvarez and move around the ring and use his movement, and we're not going to see nobody get knocked out. It's going to go to decision, and a lot of people understood that. A lot of people understood that. Clearly, by the way, hindsight, I'm saying, right? 2020. I'm saying, looking at what's happened, not trying to speculate and predict what's happening in the future, dealing with what we're dealing with the cards that we've been dealt right now at this moment, right? It is what it is, man. It is what it is, man. Bakram is a boogeyman. Vergil don't want a title. He won a title, bro. He wants a real title, bro. But we got to be honest, man. We got to be honest about what's going on in boxing, man. Shout out to everybody in the building, 50 plus people in the building. Let's make sure we're hitting that like button as we step in the building. I appreciate all you guys, right? Let's see what else is going on in here. Teat says, they said David Morone managers works with Bakram. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I'm trying to think of who his manager is, to be honest with you. LS Legend in the building. Salute to you, family. Says his team said they won't fight him due to the IBF. So regardless of the hand injury, he wouldn't have fought him. Yeah. It's a rehydration clause. Shout out to Muharib Salam. Says decorative duck talk on Ortiz's report. Bakram has fought at 68. The weight cut and rehydration is real for him too. Yeah, man. Listen, man, but it's not based off of Bakram. It's based off of Vergil. You know what I mean? Bakram may be able to do it. Bakram trained during Ramadan and fought, right? It's not about Bakram. It's about Vergil. You know what I mean? What Bakram eat don't make Vergil shit. If he's literally almost lost his career from doing bad weight cuts. I mean, you don't have to relate to it, but I think there's a difference, right? It doesn't shock me that he would veer away from doing anything crazy as far as weight cuts is concerned, based on what he went through, right? It is what it is, man. Ryan Fraser says Rolly vs. Tank was canceled because of allegations as well. It's just the optics. Huge networks don't want to be attached to that craziness. 100%, man. You know what I mean? It is what it is, man. It is what it is here. I think we got a link in here, I guess, for something for some court facts. Let me see. It says honor the give status x.com. I don't know what's going on here. Man. Yeah, man. I think Berlanga is a way better promotional partner than Tank. Berlanga is going to get in Jake's face, talk ish, make the videos about Jake. Yeah, 100%. Berlanga is going to deliver on the press conference. He's going to deliver on everything, man. I got a feeling it's going to be Berlanga. I just got this feeling it might be Berlanga. I got this weird feeling. Don't quote me on it because I know there's a good chance it's not going to be him, because Berlanga just has so much to potentially lose, right, as a professional fighter who can become a champion. But Berlanga seems to be the right candidate. He has no promotional company that's holding him back. This is legitimately between Edgar Berlanga and Jake Paul. This is about whether or not Jake Paul wants the fight or not, right?
That's what this is about. Nobody's going to get in the way. I know Edgar Berlanga is here for it. Jake, if you want the fight, Edgar Berlanga is there for you to fight him. And if you don't fight him, I'm going to say it's because you don't want that fight, which is not far-fetched, right? But Berlanga seems like a realistic opponent. He's a 168-pound fighter. You know, he can get up to 190 pounds, I'm sure, pretty easily, 180 to 190 pounds easily, and compete there, right? And being in decent boxing shape. And Jake, you'd probably be the bigger guy in the ring. I mean, you're not going to be the more experienced guy. Probably not going to be the harder puncher. There's all these other parts of it as well, right? But Edgar Berlanga is coming off of a loss. He's fought Canelo Alvarez. You'd have a common opponent with Canelo Alvarez. I can list a couple of pluses as to why it makes sense to fight Edgar Berlanga for Jake Paul. In all honesty, I can make it make sense, right? If you knock out Edgar Berlanga, is there an argument that you can get into one of those fights on Canelo Alvarez's contract with Turkey? Maybe, right? Canelo Alvarez, a fighter who hasn't shown, you know, the last time we seen him fight against Terrence Crawford, he sounded like somebody who could retire, right? Who's very satisfied with his career. He's at the end of his career. He's done all the great things that he's done, and he's very comfortable with that. So that being said, is Canelo Alvarez now ready for an exhibition fight or a fight with a Jake Paul that would get him a big payday, and more than likely Canelo would win, and that put Jake Paul over the top with Netflix. Netflix would buy that all over the place. So on a trajectory of trying to put something like that together, I'm trying to paint the picture here and make it make sense. On the trajectory of something like that coming together, does it make more sense now for Jake Paul to honestly take a real look at Edgar Berlanga? Of course, we have to base that on the back end that does Jake Paul believe he can beat Edgar Berlanga? And I'll add more to it to say that you were ready to beat Canelo Alvarez. You thought you were going to beat him. You were trying to sell that fight. So if you can't even beat an Edgar Berlanga or compete at the highest level with an Edgar Berlanga, then we know Canelo Alvarez was pure cap, right? So there's a legitimate argument here for a fight between Jake Paul and Edgar Berlanga in the sense of the bigger picture and responding accordingly to a boxing space that rejected your last fight offer, which was you and Gervonta Tank Davis. So now you know the boxing space is like willing to say nah to Jake Paul, right, Jake? You know that you can do the boxing space will go, nah, we don't want that. Netflix knows that now. So all these things have to be taken into consideration when making the decision as to what the next fight is going to be for Jake Paul. I think Edgar Berlanga checks boxes. He was part of a mega event with Canelo Alvarez that sold out everywhere, did what it did. Whether you want to believe it was off the strength of Canelo Alvarez or not, that's your business. But there's highlight reels out there that have Edgar Berlanga trading shots with Canelo Alvarez. He made it to the 12th round with Canelo Alvarez. He sold a big event and fought against Hamza Shiraz and got knocked out, but still is worth the money. There's an argument there to say that his press conferences, his interactions with Oscar De La Hoya, the way he sold the fight with Hamza Shiraz, the way he sold the fight with Canelo Alvarez, he's great at the press conferences. He's going to check those boxes that Tank didn't check, right? He's going to talk his shit. He's going to invite you to SMD, right? He's going to tell you, he's going to invite you to a situation. Pause, right? He's going to invite you to his man parts. He's going to talk crazy. You're going to say crazy thing to him. Hey, Jake, he might even take the bet, right? He might even take the bet. You know how Jake is. Hey, let's bet purses. Let's bet a bag, right? Edgar might be your Huckleberry in multiple different ways. So I've got a funny feeling that it's going to be Edgar Berlanga. That's what I believe. I don't see it being Francis Ngannou. I don't see it being Anthony Joshua. Maybe Anthony Joshua. He could be in the conversation too, but I don't. Maybe Anthony Joshua, because if Jake Paul's team is smart and they think about his inactivity, the way he's looked in his last couple of fights, I think there's an argument there that Jake Paul could feel like he could beat Anthony Joshua. Do I think he would? No, I think Anthony would clip him, right? But is he confident enough? Does he think that's a fight he should do? Maybe. And that would definitely be a big fight. Maybe. Heavyweight. Jake, you're going to be fat in that fight, though, right? You're going to be fat, 230 plus pounds. You're going to be out of shape, man. I don't know. Are you punching hard? Does your power translate to the heavyweight division like that? I don't know. Yeah, but I would say Edgar Berlanga is still the guy I feel like makes more sense with Jake Paul. But a good runner up would be Anthony Joshua, right? A good runner up would be Anthony Joshua. I know there's been conversations in the boxing space about potentially Deontay Wilder being a fight. I know it wasn't announced on social media as far as I don't think Jake Paul reached out to Deontay Wilder's team, but I think Deontay Wilder is just super dangerous, bro. I don't think Jake should do that. But if he did that, maybe that as well could sell. That could be a big payday for Deontay Wilder. And I think the space would be shocked, right? I think a lot of people, if you think about it, if you were to hear Deontay Wilder and Jake Paul getting ready to go at it, I think that would stir it up. That would stir it up. So, all these different things that can happen. Shout out to Von the Virtuoso in the building, says he not going to fight Berlanga. Berlanga, a real fighter despite his lack of skills compared to other fighters. Yeah, I get it. He is a real fighter, man. But does Jake think he can do something with him? You know what I mean? Does he think he can? Jake has developed as a boxer, man. If he thinks, listen, man, you never know, bro. You never know. I think that fight makes sense, especially considering the fact that Jake Paul was going to try to fight Canelo Alvarez, right? For the big payday, of course. But is there a big payday with Edgar Berlanga? Right? Just look at it like this, right, ladies and gentlemen? Netflix is trying to give Jake Paul a bag of money. Or how about this? Jake Paul knows that there's a bag of money sitting over there at Netflix for him. He knows there's a lot of money sitting there for him. He has to give Netflix the fight that Netflix would say, okay, and release the funds. Look at it like that, right? The question is, does Edgar Berlanga check the boxes for what Netflix is looking forward to seeing Jake Paul get in the ring with, right? Think about what I'm saying. I'm not saying even necessarily that if it was Jake Paul's, if it was an ideal situation for Jake Paul, he would cherry pick a fighter that stylistically he could stop, right? That's what he would do. But this situation, Jake Paul in Netflix, you can say there's somewhat of a redemption going on here, where Jake Paul is trying to regain the confidence of Netflix. Is there an argument there to say that Netflix has lost a little bit of faith in Jake Paul? Just a little bit. Not enough to walk away from Jake Paul, but enough to be like, I don't like how that Gervonta Tank Davis situation was looking like it was going to happen. Thank God he has some personal issues that came to the surface that make it make sense for us to pull out of that. But that being said, what's the next fight going to be? Because we'll put the money up, but we want it to sell. Because clearly the boxing space isn't just going to take anything and everything you're going to deliver to it. And I think a lot of that has to do with Turki Al-Sheikh. I know a lot of it has to do with that. Why? Because I think what you're seeing is Turki Al-Sheikh has effectively raised the bar with boxing fans, right? He's legitimately raised the bar. You didn't know. Maybe the Terrence Crawford Canelo Alvarez fight was a fight that did it. I don't know, but at some point, the boxing space fans, their expectation has gone up. Right? Some point along this journey, our palate has changed. You know what I mean? Now we love pizza, but now we like good pizza. Not just any pizza. I hope that doesn't fly over y'all head, right? We love pizza, but we don't love any old pizza no more. We've had some pizza now from a real Italian. We went to New York. We went to the best New York spot for pizza in New York or New Jersey. And now our palates have changed. And now we've come back home and we're like, I don't like this pizza over here. I want that pizza. Especially if you want my money for it, right? And I think it's happened. And I think Jake has realized that. I think Jake, and I'm giving you that metaphor and example to say that Netflix has tasted, a Terrence Crawford Canelo Alvarez event. And they're like, yeah. They're not trying to go back to a Tyrone Woodley versus Jake Paul event or a Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul event, right? Nah, right? We Netflix has a whole different idea now of what pizza is. You know what I'm saying? And now they're like, yeah, and Jake is like, damn, all right, well, all right. So now Jake has to not just cherry pick an easy fight for himself. I'm sure that's what he'd like to happen in an ideal situation, but now Jake has to make a decision. Do I want this money? Because it looks like if I want this money, it's going to come at a cost to me. I got to legitimately consider getting in the ring with Mumra. Right? I got to legitimately consider getting in the ring with who's Optimus Prime's a legitimate Decepticon. I'm saying, like, I got to get in the ring with a legitimate foe. I'm really going to be risking losing in my next fight because I want that money. Or does he walk away from the money and make his own events on MVP and operate on the DAZN platform and deliver these fights on the DAZN platform? That's definitely an option that's still there for him, as he's still running MVP promotions with DAZN. He could very well just go on the DAZN platform and get a tune-up fight, right? That's where Nate Diaz would work, right? You could sell a pay-per-view for like $59.99, $49.99, some price like that, you know what I mean, on DAZN. And I think you still might get a negative response. It might not sell as much, but at least you're not burning bridges with Netflix. At least you're not, putting Netflix through that, and you can still come back later and get an Andre Ward later, for the 4-6 month promo campaign, or Anthony Joshua, because any of those big guys, those names right there, that's another thing. Will Edgar Berlanga be willing to make the event happen next month? I think he'd do it. I think you offer Edgar Berlanga $20 million. He's wherever you want him to be in a month from now. No questions asked. He's not having to cut the weight crazy to be at 168. He has no rehydration clause. You offer him $20 million right now. I think in December, Edgar Berlanga and Jake Paul is very realistic. Right? So all those things, man. Shout out Bond. Vergil also says, we evolved from sheet to brick, even to oven. We got you, great. 100%, Vaughn. 100%, Vaughn. We've evolved as a community, as a boxing community. We are more interested in the best, fighting the best now more than ever. We've talked about it before. It's been in the space, best fight the best and all this stuff, but now we've been getting it a little bit more often. We just saw Fabio Wardley fight Joseph Parkin. Was that the best fight in the best? Look, man, it was a great fight. The matchmaking was good. The favorite lost, right? That fight was awesome. You've seen a comeback. You've seen a competitive fight. You know what I mean? We're getting more and more used to it. We're getting more and more used to it. November 22nd, we got a crazy card coming up. That's what we're getting used to seeing, and that's what we want to see more and more now, right? It is what it is, man. It is what it is, man. Jake might walk away before he fights some real competition. Yeah, he might, but if he does that, Jake is in Mr. Big Play, I'm telling you, Jake is in such a weird situation right now, because if you walk away, then you might be hurting your credibility with your team, with Alicia Baumgartner, your fighter, with Gary Antoine Russell, even though he's a PBC fighter, but still, you might burn bridges with boxing, as boxing will blame Jake Paul. Who wants to get involved with a Jake Paul card? I don't know. There's a lot to be said. I want to dial into the Vergil Ortiz situation, though, and Erickson Lubin situation a little bit as well, right? Guys, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I got a little bit of time. You know what I'm going to do, matter of fact? I'm going to go ahead and put the link out, by the way. I'm going to put the link out. Hold on a second. This thing is, okay, boom. Let's see if this works. Here's the link, by the way, if anybody wants to come up and share any thoughts on the topics. I'm going to be getting off in a few minutes, probably like another 20 minutes or so. But I wanted to talk on this Erickson Lubin and Vergil Ortiz fight, because that's what it's all about right now, right? And also, if I go up tomorrow, maybe, I don't know, tomorrow's Friday. Should I talk about it? I mean, there's a big fight, in my opinion, going on tomorrow for me personally, between Tiger Johnson and Nick Vlaus, whatever his name is. Sorry, respectfully. That is a decent fight that's going to be going on tomorrow. I think you guys want to make sure you catch that. I'll be on Pro Box. Tiger Johnson, debuted at 147 about 2 fights ago. He's changed his trainers now. He's coming into the ring and he's trying to. I think he's one of the guys at 147 up and coming that's going to make 147 very interesting. This fight is going to be a big tell sign of what we can expect from Tiger Johnson. At 147, and Nicholas Floss as well is in the conversation for being involved in some big things going on at 147 as well. So these guys right now, potentially the winner of this fight leaves Pro Box, right? Now I don't say leaves Pro Box, but kind of like a Lamont Roach situation where now they can transition into big fights on big cards. You know what I'm saying? Potential opponents for the Brian Normans, or the winner between Mario Barros and Ryan Garcia, the Rolly Romeros, or the winner between him and Shakram Giasov, and all these different fighters that are running it right now at 147. You guys know 147 is looking for somebody to make it interesting, right? As 147 has lost its luster, especially with Jerome Boots and it's leaving, just pretty much took the last of the Mohicans. The biggest stars now, Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr., Ryan Garcia, who they're just throwing into another title fight. That's a whole nother conversation, right? That's a big fight tomorrow evening between Tiger Johnson and Nicholas Floss. But let's dial into this Erickson Lubin Vergil Ortiz fight, because I want to tell you guys who I think is going to win this fight, right? But I want to, and it's been difficult because this is a 50-50 fight, right? Now, I'm leaning towards Vergil Ortiz Jr. to win this fight. That's where I'm leaning, right? If you care, right? That's where I'm leaning. But at the same time, I want to be honest and tell everybody that Erickson Lubin is a live dog in this fight. And the odds, I think last time I saw was like plus 600 or something like that for Erickson Lubin to win this fight. Crazy. And I think for the knockout, it's like a plus 9 and change. Some crazy odd like that, right? This is going to be a southpaw puncher in Erickson Lubin with a boxing acumen, who can be slick when he wants to be and has power in both hands. I believe the last time that Vergil Ortiz Jr. fought a southpaw, when it might have been at 147, right? Was it Mean Machine? I can't remember if it was Mean Machine at southpaw. Anyway, that being said, right? This is going to be the biggest step up in Vergil Ortiz's career. This is the biggest litmus test because, everybody has had a lot of expectations for Vergil Ortiz Jr. Oscar De La Hoya, the people around him, one of the biggest things that ever happened was that this guy got sick and may not ever be able to box again. And Oscar really put a lot of stock into what Vergil Ortiz Jr. was showing the world he was going to be. Remember, the big fights were going to be him versus Jerome Boutenis, him versus Stanionis at 147. He was going to be the future. And now he gets a chance to bring that full circle back here at 154. And this fight right here against Erickson Lubin, a fighter who's fought Jamel Charlo, fought Sebastian Fondor, Terrell Gosha, Jason Rosario. He has a pretty extensive list of fighters, Jesus Ramos, that he's fought, significant fighters that he's fought at 154. And he's a career 154 pounder. He's been there the majority of his career, and looks like, in my opinion, he's not. People are talking about, is it time for him to move to 160? I don't think it is. I think he's okay where he's at, and I think he's a very comfortable 154-pound fighter. That's his weight class. And Vergil is going up against him after fighting Serhii Barchuk and Israel Majimov. Those guys are great guys, but I do believe that Erickson Lubin is maybe the best of both worlds, and is going to be offering Vergil Ortiz issues in multiple different facets of the game. If he wants to move and not get punched, he can do that. Will he do it? That's another question. This is why I'm leaning towards Vergil Ortiz to win this fight, because I think that I'm questioning as to whether or not Erickson Lubin will have the discipline to fight this fight the way he needs to fight it to walk away with the victory. Not to mention the fact that this fight's going to be happening in Texas, in Vergil Ortiz's hometown. You could already see by the flyer the way they're treating Erickson Lubin. So if this fight is a close fight, I have a hard time believing that the judges are going to go in Erickson Lubin's direction. Needless to say, though, Vergil Ortiz Jr. has to make I believe Vergil Ortiz Jr. is going to have to make adjustments in this fight. Erickson Lubin is going to give him those looks, and it's going to be interesting to see as to whether or not he's comfortable with doing that. Now, Erickson Lubin can be baited into a fight. I've seen him respond. We saw how he fought against Sebastian Fundora and how nasty that fight got. But people forget that Erickson Lubin was beating on Sebastian Fundora. He sat him on his pockets as well. That he showed that dog. He showed that determination, and he was taking rounds in that fight. This is a big deal. People want to judge him on what happened with Jermell Charlo. That was a situation to where there's an argument there to say that Erickson Lubin shouldn't have been in that fight, that he was too young, that he was being pushed too fast. But still, the experience is there. He's walked away with that experience, and he feels like he's grown into himself, into the best version of himself right now. So we have to look at this for what it is and say, Erickson Lubin can win this fight, bro. He can box very well. He can punch. And like I said, power in both hands. Vergil, look at the Israel Madrimov fight closely, guys, as I keep telling everybody about this damn fight, man. Israel Madrimov was boxing Vergil's ears off in those first 3 to 5 rounds. I'm sorry if you guys don't agree. I get it. I mean, everybody is entitled to their personal opinion on how they look at things, but I've watched that fight at least 3 times at this point, and I'm telling you, right? The question is, though, 22 to 24 rounds of fighting 2 of the best, a former champion in Israel Madrimov and an interim title holder in Bakram, who he took that title off of. What did that do for Vergil Ortiz? What did he walk away from those fights with? Did they have honest conversations after that Bohachuk fight and say, man, you won, but we don't want you to fight like that again. You got hit way too much in that fight. Against Israel Madrimov, are they being honest and saying that, yeah, you won that fight, you broke him down to the body, but he had conditioning issues, and does he beat the Israel Madrimov who beat Terrence Crawford? I mean, oh my goodness, blasphemy. Dude, blasphemy. Does he beat the Israel Madrimov who fought Terrence Crawford? Huh? I don't know. So if Lubin can capitalize on what he's seen, because Lubin's team has a lot of tape on Vergil Ortiz right now, right? They can see him in every aspect of his game damn near now. If there's something there that he has that he didn't show, that's a different conversation. But we've seen him in there with the boxer, Israel Madrimov, and we've seen him struggle. We've seen him try to sit there in the pocket against a Serhii Bohachuk, and we've seen his power not translate to stop Serhii Bohachuk or even look like he's going to stop Serhii Bohachuk. Those 2 fights right there are arguably the only 154-pound fights, are the only 154-pound fights that Vergil Ortiz has. If you want to count the Fred Lawson fight, that's your business, but that was a catchweight fight, and Fred Lawson is Fred Lawson. Sorry. He's Fred Lawson. He's good. Shout out to Fred Lawson, but he's Fred Lawson. Okay. That's up to you. Do you want to count the Thomas Delorme fight and say, fine, that's Thomas Delorme. He ended him in the first, second round. I don't know when it was, right? If that's what you want to do, you can do that. But I'm talking to my boxing community, my family here, to say that me personally, my take on it is I don't give him as much. Those fights didn't tell me that he's going to dominate 154 all the way. I give him the respect. Great fights, right? As far as Serhii Bohachuk and Israel Madrimov, because I don't care about the Fred Lawson and I do not care about the Thomas Delorme fight. But those 2 fights there were great fights because it showed he had that dog in him. It showed that he had a decent jab. It shows that he's not, you can't break him. But it also showed in the Bohachuk fight, it showed that you can put him on his pockets. In the Israel Madrimov fight, it showed that you can outbox him. It showed that if you have the conditioning, that you can make that a hard fight for him. Because Israel Madrimov was coming down from an upper respiratory infection, from what I understand, potentially may have been even getting threats, because there was an argument that Madrimov's team was thinking about pulling out of that fight, as they had just pulled out of the Serhii Bohachuk fight they were supposed to be involved in on the Bivol card. I want to say it was the Bivol Beterbiev card, right? They had pulled out of that card to get him together because he had pneumonia. And there was an argument there to say that he didn't fully recover, but fought the fight anyway, which is why his conditioning put him in a situation to like after the fifth round, fifth round, he started standing there and banging with Vergil Ortiz because he didn't have the conditioning to move around the way he was against Terrence Crawford. Just being honest with you guys. This is something that Erickson Lubin and his team, if they're watching and they're doing the videotape study, should be able to say, you know what? We can do that. We can box like Madrimov was boxing, and better because we have more pop. We punch harder. There's an argument there to say that Erickson Lubin punches harder than Serhii Bohachuk, right? But Bohachuk is a compounding fighter, right? He's an accumulative puncher. You know what I mean? He hits you with 1,000 cuts from the blades, and then you fade to black, right? We saw what happened with Serhii Bohachuk and Brandon Adams recently, right? On that epic card, by the way, with Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. So this fight right here is going to be competitive. And once again, I'm leaning towards Vergil Ortiz. I'm leaning towards him, right? If Vergil's over here, I'm kind of like this, but I'm not all the way over there because I'm really looking to see what Erickson Lubin can do in this fight. Because I think it's a big deal for him. Now, he made those adjustments. He moved his trainers around. Now he's working with Coach K. That's kind of concerning to a certain degree. Let's see what Coach K is going to do there. Is Erickson Lubin going to come and completely try to change his game and be a complete different fighter? Is he going to leave the person who brought him to the dance and go with the next best looking girl at the bar when he gets in there? Or is he going to be faithful and loyal to what brought him to the big show? And is Coach K aware of that? And is Coach K just going to add a little to that, but really refine what he's already been doing? Or is he going to change everything? And can he change anything in a significant way in one training camp? It's a lot to take a look at. It's a lot to think about. But that's Erickson Lubin's trial and test, right? Shout out to Von Vergil, also showing some love right now. $20 in the super chat. Salute to you, Von. Let's see what he says here. He says, if Lubin has learned from his mistake and sticks to the game plan to box, do you think the politics of boxing is going to rob him? Love your take. You love your take. Keep grinding, brother. Yes, I was speaking to it earlier, Von, the virtuoso. Salute to you, man. Appreciate the love, man. Yeah, I think this is a fight to where he's going to have to make a clear separation in the sand. There's a lot riding on this fight. Jerron Boots Ennis and Eddie Hearn are going to be ringside. Rumor has it. This is what we're supposed to expect to see, right? So we know what the big fight is at 154 right now is Vergil Ortiz versus Jerron Boots Ennis. And here Jerron Boots Ennis is on the back end, right? On the back end of calling out Vergil Ortiz, Jermell Charlo, Sebastian Fundora, Bakram Murtazaliev. He's called out all the fighters at 154. There's an argument there to say that he's going to show up and they're planning on doing a face-off with Jerron Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz Jr. We know the politics of the sport are definitely going to be front row and center for this fight. Erickson Lubin has to fight his fight, though. And that's another thing. Does he allow that to get into his mental space to where it affects the way he fights? You know, Terrence Crawford got confronted with the same question going into the Canelo Alvarez fight, and I think he gave one of the most honest, real answers. And he said, I don't got no time to think about the judges. I got to do my job, and I got to pray that they do their jobs. But if you've seen the Terrence Crawford and the Canelo Alvarez fight, look how he fought in the championship rounds. In a fight where a lot of people, including myself, arguably had him winning the fight completely no matter what. I had Terrence Crawford up 10-2, 9-3. You know, I make it 9-3 so nobody don't think I'm just being a fanboy for Terrence Crawford, but straight up, he won that fight hands down for me. But going into the championship rounds, what did Bomac tell Terrence? You got to win these rounds. You can't play no games. They want to take this away from you. And look at those scorecards he had against Canelo Alvarez. Look at those scorecards. I'm not saying they were trying to rob Terrence, but yeah, he needed those championship rounds, right? He definitely needed those championship rounds. So Erickson Lubin's going into the backyard of his enemy right now in Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz, this is a homecoming fight for him. This is a big deal for him because of what comes after this. He's an interim title holder. This puts him in the conversation of fighting the winner between the Sebastian Fundora, Keith Thurman, and obviously making a big mega fight for the money with Jerron Boots Ennis, or maybe even making a title fight against Xander Zayas if he decided to entertain that. This fight is going to be a big deal. A lot of people are betting on Vergil Ortiz to win this. Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions. A lot of people are really gambling on the fact that they want this kid to be one of the next faces of boxing. They want him to be one of those faces for American boxing. They want Vergil Ortiz Jr. in the same conversation as David Benavidez, right? As Brian Norman Jr., as Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, right? They want him in those conversations because boxing is in a space of transitioning into the next guard, right? We see what Gervonta Tank Davis is doing. He's looking to fade away. He's not checking the boxes for the face of boxing anymore like he was, right? Who's going to be the next big superstar? Who's going to be the next big needle mover? Who's going to pack out the stadiums in Vegas? Who's going to take over Cinco de Mayo on Mexican Independence Day? All these different aspects of the conversation. Vergil Ortiz Jr. has a lot of people rooting for him to do that. So the politics are going to be at the highest level. Erickson Lubin, not to say he has to take that into consideration, but yes, his performance has to deliver that way. Von the Virtuoso, his performance has to make sense. It has to be undeniable for them to derail what they're trying to do with Vergil Ortiz Jr. Right? It is what it is. Right? No doubt. Let me see here. Mr. Big Play says Lubin has to go into the ring knowing he down rounds. To me, he can win, but he can't take no rounds off. 100%, brother. 100%. Shout out to Detroit D-Town. Said I had a 9-3 top. Yeah, 100%. I'm being real with you. I got my scorecards right here. I had a 10-2. You know what I'm saying? I keep all my scorecards. I got a book, my notebook here that I keep my scorecards in, and I had it 10-2. But I was willing to give it 9-3 and give him a swing round in there, right? Maybe there was a round in there that, you know, I think I have it here. There was like 2 swing rounds I had in there that could have went either way, but I had it 10-2. 9-3 at max for sure. Armani Fitness says they had it 7-5. That's nasty. 100%. He needed those championship rounds. Mind you, this Vergil Lubin, a 10-rounder. Oh, that's right. It's a 10-rounder. So boom. Do the math. Do the math, right, guys? It is what it is. So I'm looking at Vergil Ortiz to I'm leaning towards him to win this. That's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. But Erickson Lubin can do this. This is a fight he can do this with, right? He can win this fight. He can win this fight. And if he doesn't win this fight, at a minimum, force Vergil Ortiz Jr. to make us see what it could look like between him and Jerron Boots Ennis, right? Don't just show us, because whatever Erickson Lubin can do, there's a legitimate argument there to say that Jerron Boots Ennis can do better, right? So a lot on the back end of this fight here on Saturday. I'll be calling it, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure you pop up in the building. The thumbnail will be up there. I'll be commentating and covering the fight. If you haven't seen me commentate on the fight, look at some of my old videos. I think I do a pretty decent job. I'm getting better at it, but it's something I'm passionate about, love doing. So I will be calling the Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Erickson Lubin whole fight card. Let's see what other fights are on the card as well. I'm about to be on my way out, but let's see what else. I can give you guys a heads up of what I think of those fights as well. Let's see here. All right, got him here. What else is on this event? Let's pull up the card here real quick here. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me, guys. Add, screen share. Boom. Let's share this. Let's see who else is going to be on this card. Are we looking at the card here? Let's check it out here. Darius Fulgham versus David Stevens. This is going to be a great fight right here. What a great co-main event fight right here. Darius Fulgham just taking his first L against Bektemir, and David Stevens also has that common opponent with him as well. This fight right here is low-key a big deal right here. Right here, this is Darius Fulgham's opportunity to put himself back in the conversation at 168. Is this a 168 pound or 175? This might be a 170. Hold on a second. Where's this fight going to happen at here? Let me see here. Yeah, 168 pounder, right. It's a 168 pounder fight. This is an opportunity for him to get in that conversation again. And David Stevens as well is right in the same. Both these guys have a lot on the back end of this fight right here. And both these guys are real dogs in this fight here, man. I don't know what I'm leaning towards in here. I'll be honest with you, low key. Kind of leaning towards David Stevens a little bit in this, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. A little bit, just a little bit. I don't know. A little bit. Darius. Uh Darius is a real good fighter, bro. Real good fighter, bro. Yeah, that's gonna be a great fight right there. Anybody else stand out here on this card for me? Amari Jones is gonna be fighting here. Not Omari Jones is gonna be fighting on this card as well. Let me see. We got Eric Priest versus is Nikier Corey. That should be a decent fight right there too as well. We got a super bantamweight fight here. Figo Ramirez versus Oziel Rango. I'm not familiar with those guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. We got a heavyweight. Oh, Joshua Edwards is gonna be on this card. Big Joshua Edwards, future of the American heavyweight division, right here, in my opinion. Right, when you're talking about Richard Torres, you're talking about Jared Anderson. Those guys are obviously more experienced, but Joshua Edwards coming with an Olympian background, great fighter, bro. Great fighter. Going to be walking up in there with Ronnie Shields to show out again. 4 wins, 4 KOs. This obviously going to be a tune-up fight for him to show his pedigree. I think he has a fighter here who has a winning record, so that's good. They're going to start elevating the competition for Joshua Edwards, man. He's going to be in those conversations, in my opinion, with the Moses Atalmas. Like I said, the Jared Andersons, the Richard Torreses, the young and up-and-coming heavyweights. This is the next guard that's coming into the boxing space. So it's going to be real good watching him fight. We got a super lightweight fight between Javier Lameza and Joshua Brion Garcia. We've got a welterweight fight between Samuel Torres and Ricardo Elizalde. I'm assuming these are prospects who are trying to make it happen. And then, of course, I don't know if he's opening the card, but Omari Jones, it'll be good to watch him fight, an undefeated fighter. Is Omari fighting under the Devin Haney banner? Is he over there with DHP, or is he not there with him? I don't know, right? Not too sure. Let me see here. Copy. Let me go ahead and take this off of here. I'm trying to figure out how to do all this stuff, man. Replace, remove, boom. Boom. It is what it is. It is what it is, right? Now it says no, it's a 12-round fight. Okay. It's a 12-rounder. That's what I would think. Right. It's the interim titles on the line, so it's not a 10-rounder. It's a 12-rounder for sure. Right? Exactly. It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Look, guys, I appreciate all you guys being in the building, man. We built on some boxing, man. Until the next one, make sure you hit the like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it. Until the next one, guys, it's your boy Clay Rain. It's at ATP Combat Media Show, right? Until the next one, we out.